Welcome to Disruptive Capitalists, the show where purpose-driven entrepreneurs and bold investors share how they're reshaping the world by investing time and money in a way that improves lives and creates wealth. So let's get to it. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another great episode of Disruptive Capitalist Podcast, where we talk about how to make a difference in the world with our time and money. And today, my guest is Marcy Sagel, the founder and principal of MSA Interiors. She is an expert in commercial interior design with over 30 years of experience shaping multifamily housing, student living, senior housing, and more. As a founder and principal of MSA Interiors, she's worked with top developers, REITs, and institutions nationwide to create innovative, functional spaces that drive value and elevate user experience. She also has a lot of work and experience working with folks in need. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Marcy, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about what it is you do and what drives you.
So we work in commercial interior design, and we have a big focus in multifamily, which is multifamily market rate, affordable housing, senior living housing, student housing, pretty much every aspect of multiple people in a living environment. So a lot of apartment complexes nationwide, and have been doing that for like almost 3 decades. So
wow, that's fantastic. So when a lot of people think of apartments, they're just like, okay, beige walls, beige carpet, or no carpet, and there's no design. What would you say to that? Because clearly design has a purpose.
Well, it's come a long way in 3 decades. Now it has more of a hospitality feel. It is activated amenity spaces. It is engaging amenity spaces, and it's community activated. It's not just for the building. It's also all of the community around the building. So those are sort of what I say is the difference now. And design is everything. Everyone at any level wants to live in a really well-designed space.
Absolutely. I think as an apartment complex owner myself, multifamily, we've spent a fair amount of time trying to understand how, why is it that people stay in an apartment complex versus leaves, and engaging that community, creating a community vibe. If they have friends there in the community, then they're 70% more likely to stay than to move. And so turnover is one of the biggest expenses for multifamily apartment complexes. And oh my goodness, people matter. So when we treat people like they matter and create community, helping them make friends and matter, then it's no surprise that you become more profitable and more successful.
Sure. Probably the most important thing that we look for in a property is how do we engage that sort of family feel, that friendly feel. And we don't leave it just up to the property management group, because while they do a lot of those activities, we have to design the space to kind of hold those activities. So we want to make sure that, those spaces are really generating what the community needs. So important.
So you're working in different levels, right? You said apartment complexes, senior living, student living. What are you seeing? What trends are you seeing right now in those spaces?
So there's a lot of new trends that we're seeing. And the one thing that, I will tell you is we work a little differently. We really do go into the community, and we really get some community feedback of what, if they could just build their perfect apartment building with services, what would you look for in the community? What would you love? And so we go out there and we really kind of do our own little poll of, what people need. So different buildings, depending on where their location is. We're in Baltimore, Maryland, but, we've done affordable housing in a lot of different states, and they have different requirements. And depending on who the developer is, and the team of developers, sometimes they have different requirements for what their needs are. But ultimately, we want people to stay there and literally age in place. So we want them to grow a community, figure out what that community can give them, and services that they can give them? Are you going to get meals delivered? Are you going to have educational element component, computer components where people can actually not have to have their own computer and can come down to a computer lab? I know that sounds old school, but for seniors, that's something really important. And are you going to be able to have your family members come and stay overnight and be able to entertain them in a really great amenity space with a big service kitchen where they can host all kinds of, big holiday meals for the people that don't get to have a holiday meal with family, and they can feel like the building is their family. So lots of different engagement things that aren't things that generally designers think about. So
interesting. How is, I think is wonderful because, I mean, in the old days, like old people would hang out together, right? And then we got to this weird space where everyone stayed away from each other, and then COVID kind of amplified that, where we were scared to talk, and all of a sudden nobody talked to anybody and everyone's getting depressed. And now we're coming back to communities matter. Let's put people near each other and they can make friends and so forth. Is AI playing a role in any of this for you and for your residents? So
AI is not playing a role necessarily in design, in the elements that we're bringing to the design. That's a creative thought process that, we're engaging, and we're getting information out of the community and the developers that, we're still doing all of that. But where AI comes in is basically in the operation efficiencies. So the operation efficiencies, which are, from an investment standpoint, are really important. And that's where AI is really playing a much bigger role.
How have you seen, how difficult has it been to find resources for these places that you're working?
Not really at all difficult. So we have been involved with manufacturers for a very long period of time, almost 3 decades. And so because of that, we know all the greatest and latest materials that are coming out on the market, the tried and true, the workhorses, so to speak, the ones that can really hold up over time. We're not going to give a client a brand new product and have it fail. Not if it's going into, hundreds of units at a time. So we want to make sure that they're thoughtful, that they're going to give comfort and value to each of the spaces and still be affordable and look great.
It's amazing. You can have stuff that looks great, is affordable, and lasts. And we have found, I know for us, when we were renovating hundreds of units every year, it wasn't much more money to buy something that lasted, that looked great, than it was to buy the low-end cheap stuff, and that we would end up replacing a year later. And that was kind of a hard lesson for us because we were trying to keep costs down so that we could give a better return to our investors, but then it just ends up increasing cost in the end, and we just blew a lot of money. And so finding that balance is,
and with
through
that
experience,
with that balance, it's important to show the investors and the team of people behind it what those dollar values are when you're picking materials, because we need to say this is a single dollar, a double dollar, or a triple dollar, but we want them to know exactly what that price point is. And that price point is the purchase price that the contractor's going to buy it for, knowing that they will have a markup on it because it's a contract markup that they have along with the developer. So we give them the price. Let's say, we have an LVT that's, just for everyone out there, vinyl plank flooring that is, let's say it's $1.90, but we want a sound attachment to it that comes already attached. So we're eliminating an installation layer by having it come from the factory already attached. And that might be an extra 50 cents. But it gives you that extra layer of sound, which we also want in the Gyp Creek, by the way. Just always put that out there. Always want that sound barrier wherever you can get it.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yes,
because
please.
It's just tenant nightmare otherwise. But but if you can do for 50 cents for an extra layer of wear, guess what? It's going to be added value over the course of time. And same thing for any of the other materials that we put in. If we have high traffic areas and we really want to give a lot of pop We'll put like a custom wallpaper in that is something we can change out for a couple $1,000s down a hallway, okay? Rather than putting some kind of tile finish or something else that could be dated. The wallpaper can be taken away in 5 years and put something up new and it looks fresh. So these are sort of value-added things that we do that are good for heavy wear and tear. We do student housing with it all the time, and still gives you quite a bit of pop down a very large space. So
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Tell me, we were talking just before the pod started, you have been involved with affordable housing. You've been involved with people in need. Tell us a little bit about your work there.
So we got involved with affordable housing very early on, and was originally brought into some projects in DC. And it was a privately owned community that had been in the city for a very long time. It had incredibly high crime, like the highest crime. And we were brought in, and we decided that we were going to really talk to the community leaders. They had 2,000 units. It's a lot of units. Yeah. In a high rise and townhouses that all shared amenity spaces. And when I pulled up to the building, I thought, this cannot be right. This just cannot be right. But it was right. And I walked in. Were
these public housing? Sorry, were these public housing?
Definitely public housing owned by private sources that used it as tax write-offs, probably 3 decades before. So very common, by the way. And so we work on a lot of those. So we were brought in to renovate the entire amenity spaces and entry. So it currently looked like a jail. I'm not going to exaggerate. It had an armed guard. It had, no one could get in without showing an identification if you did not have the right, key entrance. And it was a very dangerous place. So my thoughts were, let's talk to the leaders. Let's talk to the community. Let's talk to the people that have lived there the longest and figure out what they need. What kind of services do you need? What do you want from this project going forward in this beautiful amenity space that they're about to spend a ton of money on? What would be, sort of your most interested things that you would want? Well, we found out a lot of people get Meals on Wheels, okay? And so they take those Meals on Wheels and they just go straight upstairs to their unit apartments. We wanted to have more of an engagement. We wanted to have stacking foldable chairs that we could put away for speakers, for educational purposes, for larger meal gatherings, so that we could have tables on wheels or fold-up tables. So we could really engage the space and kind of make it more a communal space that people could use. We put the fitness with a see-through window for nursery. Okay.
Yeah.
So
great.
People put their kids in there and be on the other side. Either one side was like like we put it sort of waist high so the kids could be on the lower side. They could see in, make sure they were safe, and they could be working on the computer and get a couple minutes of a break in the day, or they could be working in the gym. So we did it on 2 different sides and kind of activated that space in that way. And not only that, all the elderly people in the building that had grandkids that weren't around, they could kind of peek in without being in the space and really feel connected. They could put their hand up to the glass. It just felt kind of like an interesting connection. So learning all of these different things, it made me feel like we weren't doing enough. We weren't getting involved enough. We were listening to the developer, but we weren't listening to the community. And we really needed to bridge the gap between the developer and the community. And if we did that and spent more time on our end, finding out what the needs were, we were going to have a better, more successful project. And everybody could be on the table and panel that could make the decisions. And that's what we started doing. We asked the developer to appoint a few people from the community to be on that committee to make the decisions so that they could actively be telling us, about, what the needs were. And some of the things that we figured out were super simple, like we had a lot more elderly people than we thought we were going to have. Okay. A lot of people had aged in place for a really long period of time. So we wanted to make sure that they had direct access to their independent bathroom from their bedroom without having to go through their living room to the front of the entrance of the unit to get to their bathroom. And so just simple things that we could adjust and make more valuable. Now we had to add an extra door to do that to the bathroom, but guess what? It was really well received and a super simple. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? We had an apartment complex that there was a murder on the property before we closed. It was during it was under contract. Lots of crime. The day we closed, the SWAT team was there, showed up right after we closed. And what we found was we just did our work. We engaged the community. We only got rid of a few bad actors. Made everyone clean up their trash. No more trash on the porches. None of that stuff. We cleaned up the community spaces. We made them really clean and beautiful. And that year, at the end of that year, the city came to us and said, Sam and Jesse, like, what did you guys do at your apartment complex? And we're like, well, we cleaned it up and made it nice and made it clean and safe. They said, because you guys had a 75% reduction in crime this year, and the next best apartment complex had a 33% reduction in crime. Did you guys do cameras? We're like, no cameras. We didn't spend $100,000 at cameras. No cameras. Did you do a gate? No gate. Guards? No guards. None of that stuff. All we did was engage the community. And we brought in after school programs like Boys and Girls Club. And whenever somebody lost their job, we connected them with a nonprofit or a church or somebody to help them. It's really hard to find all the nonprofits, which is why we're developing a tech that connects residents with, or anybody with who is in need with a nonprofit or one of the 400 government entities that can give you some kind of subsidy if you qualify, meet the requirements. But the thing is like, that's what changed. We just honored people. We took care of people, and then we met them where they were and helped them in their time of need. And did the prices of the apartment complex go up? Yeah, the prices went up. But we also put in washer dryer units, and we took out dishwasher units and put a washer dryer unit right in there. Because if you're going to wash your dishes, I would rather have a washer dryer in my house than a dishwasher, personally. And anyhow, so it became a massive difference. And I remember a lady was in there and we said, okay, we're going to put this washer dryer in your unit. That's going to cost an extra $70 a month. And she said, I spend about 5 hours a week doing the laundry downtown, and it costs me about $200 a month. So now I don't have to go downtown with my kids and sit in a big laundromat and spend $200 in coins. I can do it in my house for $70 a month. She's like, oh,
it's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
Yeah. And we found the same thing. It's just engaging the community, bringing services that they need, engaging some of the nonprofits, we brought in what we called a service concierge. Okay.
Yeah.
We talked the developer into having what we called a service concierge, which is almost identical to what you just said, which was basically someone there to just help all the tenants with any kind of needs that they had. Basically someone that was connected and could look things up and figure out who that connector is for that particular tenant. That's not a service that everybody does. And guess what? Great value. And, on top of that, I think that, the engagement for the community was just overwhelming. And I feel so amazing when we have a ribbon cutting and I watch everyone in the community outpour payback for anything that I do. And it's not financial. It is literally the feel good for the community.
It's amazing, right? It's just amazing. Whenever I drive by that apartment complex, 180 units, and I drive by and I just think, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what happened right there.
I'm not sure, but that's okay. We're good now.
Very good. Still recording. All right. Like educational outcomes improved because the kids weren't as transient. They weren't moving. Our collections skyrocketed. Our turnover declined rapidly. It was just a big deal. And so that's why seeing the things that you just saw, Marcy, where you engage and you provide the access to the resources a lot of these folks need, which is why we ended up starting a tech company focused on helping people get the resources they need so that they can succeed in life. Because not every apartment complex owner or student housing or others are going to do all the work, hire a service concierge, or provide all the connections that people need to make it through a very tough time in their life. And so we're using AI to do that for that reason, because we should. We absolutely should.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that I see in a lot of cities, because I do live in a major city with very high crime, and I'm very proud of Baltimore City. My office is in Baltimore City. I'm in an old church, you can see in the back here, from the 1840s.
Wow.
That's where my office is. But for me, it's creating density in cities with slow growth. Okay. Mm-hmm. So a lot of inner cities have slow growth, and you watch it push out to the suburbs, and then the city falters, and there's high crime. People are afraid to live in the city. I'm a city person. I live in the city. I've lived in lots of cities, to be honest. I've lived in Boston, Philadelphia, Toronto. So I've lived in quite a few cities. So, and big ones, and some with high crime and some with not so high crime. So it's really creating growth in those inner cities and not being afraid to grow those cities within the city realms rather than pushing them out to the suburbs. And so that's super important to me, not just for Baltimore, but for all of the other communities that we work in. And we do work in a lot of different affordable and workforce housing communities that we do. So
that's beautiful and wonderful. We've had a great conversation so far. I've loved getting to know you, and I love what you're doing, bringing design, making places beautiful, and lifting that human spirit, because that's what happens when we're in a well-designed place. It lifts our spirits. When we're in a dungeon, I guess technically well-designed to be a dungeon, but it makes a difference in our lives. It really, really does. For folks who are very interested in learning more about what you do or reaching out to you, how can they get in touch with you?
Best place is through our website, MSAinteriors.com. And we have our emails listed on the website, Mary Beth and myself, and you can reach out to either one of us and let us know if you have any questions or want any help with anything that you might want to chat about or work on.
Fantastic. We'll make sure that's in the show notes. Marcy, thank you so much for being on the show and being a disruptive capitalist, making a difference. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. I really appreciated being here.
If this episode shifted your thinking, then share it with someone bold. And remember, capital is a tool. Use it to build a world you are proud to live in.